welcome to Star Citizen Sunday. This is a weekly show which covers all the news from Star Citizen from the week just past. I am your host Mac, so let's get on with it. This week we get to see the latest on ArtCorp and the Carrack, plus Reverse the Verse is back answering our questions on 3.5 and more. So this week's Around the Verse was pretty exciting. They kicked off looking at visual effects. Now the new IFCS system allows for thruster damage on your spaceship, which will affect how your ship flies and fights in combat in general. They want a visual representation of how to convey this to the player for both your ship and also the enemy's ship, so seeing if your enemy's ship is damaged. They're in the R&D stage, figuring out a visual goal for what they want for all of the ships. They're trying out things like fire, smoke and sparks. They're not optimized just yet, or, they're not really making them look too great, but they're just trying to get the visual ideas first. So do expect things like a lot of sparks, a lot of dust, a lot of plasma, anything that looks chaotic and obvious. When the thrusters get really damaged, expect to see a lot more plumes of fire and smoke with big whirling fires going off. They're using this particle editor and the IFCS system to affect the ship. It needs to work on all damage levels from a single shot up to a fully damaged. And personally, it doesn't look too great now, but that's before they've really added anything fancy to it. So I'm sure it will make sense when the time comes. Now there was a quick ship update. First one was the 890 jump. This is in grey box and they're just building out the geometry for final art. They're working out the turret placements on the front, top and bottom. They're also exploring window sizes and shapes and thruster orientation. It's not final, but they are working them out now. We saw the interior atrium, which is looking incredible, and work continues on the master suites with some really cool architectural staircases. We got to see quickly the med bay and the bathroom as work on there continues. They're also going to address the redundant space found on the 600i ship to ensure that the 890 jump doesn't suffer the same issues, which is good to hear. Next up was the Carrack. Now this is also in mid-grey box, and we got to see the drone bay first. You can see the drone operator in the back and the hooks which hold the drones. We got to quickly see the mess hall and the bridge, which they have kept the 3 hanging seats and decided to go back to using the mapping table rather than the hollow globe, which I really like. I'm glad they've gone back to the table. The exterior looks good as well. The antenna is obviously retracted at the moment, but you will be able to bring them out as and when needed. They also addressed the landing gear, which is looking much better now. Plus, they've made progress on the retractable cockpit armor. Overall, I think it looks excellent, and it doesn't look like a silly honey badger. Anyway, they took a quick look at the weapons, a couple of the weapons coming in 3.5. The Coda pistol, which is coming along well. You can see it's a revolver type .50 caliber gun, which even has its own cylinder magazine, which is a nice touch. Also noticed the laser sight and mount. Can't wait to see more on weapon attachments. We also saw the S71 from Gemini. This is an assault rifle, plus the Tarantula ballistic weapons, which are looking pretty cool. This is a revamped ship weapon. Very nice. To finish off with, we took a look at ArtCorp. Since we last saw ArtCorp, they have done a lot of work on the industrial and suburb areas, just nailing down the look of the buildings and how they scatter and transition between the biomes. The immediate area around Area 18's landing zone is going to be suburbs. The low suburbs have buildings no higher than about 350 to 400 meters, as they are currently exploring the no-fly zone heights, which I think is at about 400 meters. And at 400 meters, the low poly buildings look believable and integrate well with the ground texture. Basically, they take the buildings from up high and then bake them down into a flat plane texture, which look good, but if you go even closer, you can then start realizing that it's just a texture and not 3D. Downtown has higher buildings closer to Area 18. These buildings are more bespoke rather than just purely procedural, and they are just testing what looks best surrounding the LZ, but you can expect those buildings to be around 800 meters to a kilometer tall. Now they do want ArtCorp to be a place which looks believable, but also make it a place of wonder, as it has such a unique style to it. Personally, I think ArtCorp is looking much better than I could have imagined. When we get to walk around Area 18, I really hope it's going to just throw itself out to us and look fantastic. Anyway, that was Around the Verse, guys. Some really good features there, especially seeing the Carrack. Do let me know your thoughts. Let's get on to RTV, as it's quite a big one. So Reverse the Verse was back, and it was quite a lengthy one with Todd Pappy talking about supposedly just 3.5, but there was lots of other things mentioned as well. Some great answers and great questions asked, so let's quickly get on with it. Will we be able to explore all of ArcCorp by ship, or is it restricted? Now, he says that there's going to be a minimum flight height, and there will be buildings above this sort of no-fly zone, but you'll still be able to fly through them and land on them. For the future, they are working on making some of those buildings enterable and also having outposts and missions on there or combat associated with them. Obviously, these large locations of landing locations need no-fly zones, but there will also be places like villages and towns around the planets that won't have these no-fly zones. So it is only just affecting the big locations, a bit like, you know, in real life, you just wouldn't be able to fly everywhere. Next question is Area 18 going to be the only LZ in 3.5? And he says yes. They're building out each planet of Stanton with just one landing zone first, and then deciding whether to flesh it out further with more LZs or move on to the next system, which is a good question. I do address this a little later on, so we'll talk about it a bit more then, and I am going to create a video just based on this question, I think, as well. Next question is there more info on this auto gimbal mount? Now, they're planning on getting rid of the lead and follow pips. It's going to be more about staying on your target's tail and keeping them in the centre of your screen. Over time, the weapons will then converge and you can then fire. He did say there's going to be more on this in the next couple of weeks with images and videos, so we'll have to wait and see with that one. Next question, what are the plans on increasing the Friendslist capacity? And at the moment, he doesn't know, so he will look into it for us. Will we be able to explore the rest of Lawville? And he says, yes, there are more locations in the plans, but he didn't specify. Ladders are currently too grabby at the moment. Will this be fixed? And he says, yes, they're currently going through the whole FPS experience and working out how many frames it takes to perform an animation. So like get in and get out of things and hopefully reducing them. But also ladders, they know they need fixing. It's just down to priorities. They're getting the core FPS experience first, then secondary movements next. They'll just keep improving from then. Next question is, will we have other respawn zones around the landing zones around the planets? And he says, yes, coming in the future, update our cargo depots and ports, adding these to planets like Port Olisar in orbit as well, but also potentially having towns dotted around the planets. Maybe if they have a hotel, you can go and stay there and create that as your spawn point, which will be quite fun. Next question, quite an important one, is will there be co-op mission group system improvements in 3.5? And he says 3.5 is more about quality of life and bug fixing. Then missions and reward sharing will be coming later. They are talking about it now and figuring it out. Things like being able to pay people will be so useful, especially as we're all starting to run together now, and it just makes sense. Next question is, how big is Area 18 and does it have a public transport system? Now, they say it's probably a little bit bigger than Lawville, but it will have a public transport system. From the spaceport, you take a flying bus, not a train, to the city, and then you can walk around. So it's going to be more of a bus. So it won't be a train on rails. It will be, it sounds like a ship, some sort of taxi that will take you back and forth. Next question is, will there be parachutes in game? And he said yes this time, but as the focus is on Squadron 42, you won't need it in that, so it's nowhere near priority. Will there be explorable caves? Now, they are doing some prototyping on this and just seeing how they can build it from a modular standpoint. They are testing it out and seeing what works well, and it's looking very promising, and he said already you do get lost inside them, which is obviously not a bad thing. Next question is, what's the current item insurance status? Now, they started internally discussing it, but they've got nothing nailed down. They know it's important, and it is a pain at the moment when the game breaks and you just lose everything you've purchased. It will be like ships, though, where there will be a time and a cost associated. Next question is, are they planning additional landing zones like Area 17 and 19 and so forth? Now, as stated before, the focus is on getting the first landing zones of each planet in Stanton done. So I think it's Orison for Microtech, or it could be New Babbage, and then Crusader is the other one. Then you've got Area 18 for ArcCorp. Once they get those in, they will then decide whether add additional landing locations and points of interest to existing planets. And this includes things like towns, villages, bunkers, derelicts, outposts, all these sort of things. Or do they flesh out the next system, or do they maybe split the team and do both? They do have plans to create like locations like the Hurston family retreat, kind of a vacation area, and also a Hurston weapon testing ground, which is a biome specific to Hurston. Personally, I would like them to split the team and work on both, get them both fleshed out. I would love to know what your thoughts are on that, and as I say, I am working on a video that will go into more depth about what we can expect and what it means for us to get these sort of locations. Next question is to do with the future of criminality and law. Now, the person who is starting to work on the criminality and law system has just finished the TDD, which is your Trade and Development Division. This could be kind of the first guild we see in the verse. It's basically a place where you apply for jobs, kind of like what you're doing on your Mobiglass now, but it's an actual place where you can get decent jobs from. He is now working on the Law and Reputation. Likely the feature won't make it in time for 3.5, which is why it has been taken out. But the planets in Stanton may have their own laws, their local laws, because they're all owned by big megacorps. That needs to be figured out. He did say potentially we could see the first iterations in 3.5, but if not, it's definitely going to be 3.6. They know that it should not just be a career where you can remove your crime stats, so they will begin to start adding other locations to do that, but nothing has been said as to where yet. Next question is to do with the missiles. Will we get them fixed? They say they are working on them now, and this includes the collisions, and it will be a constant iteration until it's ready, and eventually they will get them all tuned and balanced, but making sure that they hit is first and foremost the priority there. Next question is to do with this enhanced ship customization with the 300 series. Now, they say it's in active development. Right now we have the bare minimum of item attachments. Going forward, we'll first see this on the 300 series, and it's the options to add additional items to your ship. Now, I think they're referring to aesthetic features like choosing a paint colour and maybe your internal materials, etc. This is when you buy them from the website, and hopefully it applies in-game as well when you buy them in-game. But they didn't really go into any specifics. As I say, it will start with the 600 and then it will roll out to the other ships. It could also play into the components and subcomponents, but I think it is more aesthetic upgrades that you can apply to your ship in some way. Next question is to do with non-lethal weapons. When are they coming? They have a plan right now, but the focus is on getting the different ammo types working, like tachyon, gamma, incendiary, and so forth. Then it's going to be gadgets and grenades. Then it's about knocking players out, and what do they experience? Do you go to a black screen, or do you just have the option to respawn? They need to figure that out first before they start developing it. Next question is, when trading cargo, what incentives are there to visit a main landing zone like Lawville, rather than just going quicker to an outpost or an R&R truck stop and selling it there? Now, they say they are adjusting the way that the TDDs work. So basically, they're going to be a place where you can buy and sell commodities. And also, they're going to be bringing in refineries. So a place that you can take unrefined goods and get them refined. Or just basically pick up and buy refined goods to sell on. Short term for refineries are that you just sell unrefined and then buy refined. When Area 18 comes on, they want to create a triangle for deliveries. Each location will need certain items that others won't, so creating missions to trade back and forth. Obviously, the economy is a major aspect of Star Citizen, and they will do lots of work and balancing on the economy until it gets to the point where they're happy with. They do still want a black market. They want to further flesh out the stores that we currently have and add new ones. They also want money sinks so players can actually spend their cash on upgrades, repairs, and everything else as well. So lots of things coming down the line, but nothing as yet. Next question is, what is the plan for increasing the player counts? Now, nothing right now, but they are talking about shards and server meshing. They need to make sure that the servers are running and solid enough for this to happen. And Chris Roberts has actually just done some code that he's written that needs to be checked in to make the ships cheaper to run, so performance-wise. Also, the player models are still too expensive, and they are working on the amount of draw calls they produce. The final question is to do with weapon attachments. When are they coming? And they say yes, they are planned for this year. After the ammo update is done, they plan on offering initially 4 points of customization. You have underbarrel, on the barrel, sights, and magazines, and that's going to be so much fun. And just before they clocked off, Todd Pappy mentioned he was just about to go into a meeting regarding Star Marine and Arena Commander. He didn't say what it is, but hopefully it means about getting a strike team on them, getting them working and solid so that we can practice FPS, we can practice flight with this new flight model without really running the risk of destroying our own ships and having to pay out for them. Anyway, next Friday they are planning on getting 3.7 and 3.8 out to us all on the roadmap. Can't guarantee it, but that's the aim. No more calling old devs, unfortunately. I have put my suggestion on the Spectrum to have a deep dive update each week, taking a feature from version 1 to what they want it to be when it's fully fleshed out, and just talking about that. And this could be any feature like salvage or whatever. But I'll drop the link in the description below, so if you do want to go and upvote that, if that's something you like the sound of and you'd like to see that week in, week out, hit that upvote button on the spectrum and hopefully it'll get Jared's attention. Anyway, that was Reverse the Verse, guys. A really good one. Nice to have it back. Let me know your thoughts. Also this week, there was an advocacy archive titled As Good As Done. So that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a video. Hit that thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and share the video with all your friends. If you like what I do and want to help me make it better, follow the link below to my Patreon page to learn more.